Hey everyone, today I want to argue that Homer Simpson is the most important character in the history of American animation. And I don't mean important in the way that people usually throw that word around. I don't mean he changed the art form, although he did. I don't mean he influenced every animated show that came after him, although that's true too. I mean something simpler and honestly something sadder than any of that. Homer Simpson is important because he's the most human character that was ever drawn on a screen. Not the smartest, not the bravest, not the funniest, even though he might be that too. Homer's important because he is a fat, lazy, beer-drinking, chronically incompetent, below-average intelligence, emotionally stunted man who has failed at virtually everything he has ever attempted in his entire life. And somehow, across 37 seasons, across more than 800 episodes, across nearly 4 decades of television, this man has made more people feel something real than almost any other fictional character ever created. And the reason is not complicated. The reason Homer Simpson connects with people on such a deep and lasting level is because every single flaw he has, every stupid decision, every drunken night at Moe's Tavern, every time he strangles his own son or forgets his wife's birthday or falls asleep at the nuclear power plant where he is literally responsible for preventing a meltdown, all of it, every bit of it, can be traced back to things that were done to him. A mother who abandoned him when he was a child. A father who lied to him about it and then spent the next several decades treating him like a disappointment. A crayon that was lodged in his brain when he was 6 years old, physically suppressing his intelligence for his entire life. And a world that was simply never designed for a man like Homer Simpson to succeed in. But here's the part that gets me every time I think about it. He keeps going anyway. He gets up every morning and drives to a job he hates. He comes home to a family that he loves more than he will ever be able to express. He tries, he fails, he tries again. And he does all of it not because he's too stupid to know any better, but because somewhere underneath all the beer and the donuts and the couch cushions and the 3 decades of accumulated damage, Homer Simpson genuinely believes that showing up for the people you love is the only thing in this world that actually matters. This is the complete story of Homer J. Simpson, from the day he was born to the man he became, from the mother who left him to the daughter he would do anything for. From the worst day of his life to the moment that defines his entire existence. And I promise you, it's sadder than you think. But before we begin, I'd just like to kindly ask you to subscribe. It's completely free, and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community. Anyway, that's enough. Let's begin. Before Homer Simpson existed in the fictional town of Springfield, before he worked at the nuclear power plant, before dough became a word in the actual Oxford English Dictionary, Homer existed as a quick sketch on a piece of paper in the lobby of a Hollywood office building. And the story of how he got from that lobby to becoming one of the most recognized fictional characters on the planet is almost as unlikely as anything that happens to him in the show itself. In 1987, a cartoonist named Matt Groening was sitting in the lobby of producer James L. Brooks's office. Brooks was the guy behind Terms of Endearment and Broadcast News. He was a giant in Hollywood. And he had called Groening in to pitch a series of animated shorts for a variety show called The Tracy Ullman Show. The original plan was for Groening to adapt his underground comic strip, Life in Hell, which featured a cast of anxious rabbits dealing with existential dread. But sitting in that lobby, waiting to go into the meeting, Groening had a moment of panic. He realized that if he handed over Life in Hell to a television network, he might lose the rights to his own creation. So he did something that would change the course of television history. He grabbed a piece of paper and right there in the lobby sketched out a new family from scratch. He named them after his own family members. The father was named after his real father, Homer Groening. The mother was named after his real mother, Margaret, which became Marge. The son was an anagram of Bart. The daughters were named Lisa and Maggie, same as his real sisters. The middle initial J in Homer J. Simpson stands for J, which was a tribute to Bullwinkle J. Moose from the cartoon Rocky and Bullwinkle, a show Groening loved as a kid. He walked into the meeting with these rough sketches and pitched a dysfunctional family instead of anxious rabbits. Brooks loved it, and on April 19, 1987, the Simpson family made their television debut as short animated segments on The Tracy Ullman Show. 48 of those shorts aired between 1987 and 1989. Now, the Homer we see in those early Tracy Ullman shorts is not quite the Homer we know today. He was rougher, louder, angrier. His voice was different too. Dan Castellaneta, the actor who has voiced Homer from the very beginning all the way through to the present day, originally based the voice on Walter Matthau, the gruff actor from The Odd Couple and Grumpy Old Men. It was a deeper, more gravelly take on the character, but over the course of those early shorts and into the first season of the full series, Castellaneta gradually softened the voice. He made it rounder, warmer, more expressive. He turned Homer from a loud, angry dad into something much more interesting. A man who sounded like he was always just a little confused by the world around him and trying his best to keep up. Castellaneta once described Homer as a dog trapped in a man's body. He said Homer is incredibly loyal, not entirely clean, but you gotta love him. Groening himself said Homer is completely ruled by his impulses, and those two descriptions together tell you everything you need to know about what Homer was designed to be. Not a villain, not a hero, not a cautionary tale, just a person. A deeply flawed, fundamentally good-hearted, impulse-driven person who happens to be animated and yellow and has 4 fingers on each hand. After 2 years of shorts, Fox gave the Simpson family their own show. The series premiered on December 17, 1989, with a Christmas special called Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. In that very first episode, the show laid out exactly what kind of character Homer was going to be. He's a man whose Christmas bonus gets canceled by his boss. His wife has already spent their savings on removing a tattoo their son got. Homer is too proud and too embarrassed to tell his family the truth, so he secretly takes a second job as a department store Santa Claus. The job pays almost nothing, his co-workers are miserable. And in the end, his desperate attempt to win money at a dog racing track fails completely, but he ends up adopting a greyhound that nobody wanted, a dog named Santa's Little Helper, and brings it home to his family on Christmas morning. That's the first episode. A man who can't provide for his family, who lies about it because he's ashamed, who fails at every attempt to fix it, and who somehow still manages to bring something good home at the end. That is Homer Simpson in 22 minutes. And the next 800 episodes are variations on that exact same theme. The show was an immediate sensation. It became the first Fox series to rank among the top 30 most watched shows in America. The second season premiere, Bart Gets an F, drew approximately 33.6 million viewers, making it the highest-rated episode in the show's history and the highest-rated program in Fox network history at the time. Within a couple of years, The Simpsons was a cultural phenomenon. Bart Simpson t-shirts were everywhere. The characters were on everything from lunchboxes to billboards. The show was beating The Cosby Show in the ratings. It was the biggest thing on television. But while the world was falling in love with Bart and his catchphrases, the writers were quietly doing something much more interesting with Homer. They were building him a backstory. And that backstory, piece by piece, episode by episode, season by season, would reveal a character who was far more broken and far more beautiful than anyone watching in 1990 could have imagined. Because to really understand Homer Simpson, you can't start with the man sitting on his couch watching television with a beer in his hand. You have to start with the boy who grew up in Springfield with a father who didn't know how to love him and a mother who loved him so much that she left. Homer J. Simpson was the son of Abraham Simpson and Mona Simpson. And if you want to understand why Homer turned out the way he did, you need to understand what happened inside that house when he was growing up. Because the damage didn't start at the nuclear power plant. It didn't start with the drinking or the donuts or the chronic inability to remember his wedding anniversary. The damage started when Homer was a child, in a home that was falling apart around him while nobody bothered to explain why. Abraham Simpson, better known as Abe or Grandpa Simpson, was a World War II veteran who came home from the war and did what a lot of men of his generation did. He got married, he had a kid, he went to work, and he buried everything he was feeling under a thick layer of routine and denial and emotional distance. Abe was never a warm father. He was never the kind of dad who got down on the floor and played with his son or asked him about his day or told him he was proud of him. Abe was distant. He was forgetful. He told long, rambling stories that went nowhere. And he treated Homer less like a son and more like an inconvenience that had been assigned to him by circumstances he couldn't control. But here's the thing about Abe that makes the whole situation sadder. It's not that he didn't love Homer. The show has made it clear across multiple episodes that Abe does, in his own confused and inadequate way, care about his son. The problem is that Abe had absolutely no idea how to show it. He came from a generation that didn't talk about feelings. He lost his wife under circumstances that he could never fully explain to his child. And instead of dealing with any of that honestly, he just shut down. He went through the motions of being a father without ever actually being present for the kid who needed him. And then there's Mona, Homer's mother. And this is where the story gets really painful. Mona Simpson, voiced across multiple episodes by the acclaimed actress Glenn Close, was everything that Abe was not. She was warm, she was loving, she was intellectually curious, she cared about the world. When Homer was little, Mona was the parent who actually showed up for him. She was the one who baked him things and tucked him in and made him feel like he mattered. Lisa's intelligence, the show eventually reveals, didn't come from nowhere. It came from Mona. The Simpson gene that makes the men of the family progressively less intelligent with age apparently skipped Mona entirely. She was the bright spot in a family that was otherwise defined by mediocrity and missed opportunities. But Mona had another side to her. In the late 1960s, as the counterculture movement swept across America, Mona got swept up in it. She became a hippie, she became an activist, she started attending protests and rallies and getting involved in causes that mattered to her. And one night, that activism put her directly in the crosshairs of the most powerful man in Springfield. The show reveals Mona's full story in one of the greatest episodes ever produced. Season 7, Episode 8, Mother Simpson, which first aired on November 19, 1995. In this episode, Homer, who is now an adult, has believed his entire life that his mother is dead. Abe told him she died when he was a child. Homer has carried that belief for over 2 decades. He has a memory of the last time he saw her, walking into a building and never coming out. He thinks she's gone. He's lived with that grief, or at least with the dull ache of it, for as long as he can remember. But in this episode, through a series of events that starts with Homer faking his own death to get out of a work assignment, he discovers the truth. His mother is alive. She's been alive the whole time. She didn't die. She went into hiding. What happened was this. In 1969, Mona joined a group of hippies who were protesting a germ warfare laboratory owned by Montgomery Burns, Homer's future boss. The group broke into the lab one night and detonated an antibiotic bomb that killed all the germs inside. Burns was trampled by the fleeing hippies, but when Mona went back to help him up, he saw her face, and Mona was identified as one of the people responsible. Mr. Burns, being the vindictive, petty, absurdly powerful man that he is, made it his personal mission to have Mona arrested and prosecuted. So Mona had to run. She couldn't go home. She couldn't see her son. She couldn't explain to a little boy why his mother wasn't coming back. She just vanished. And Abe, instead of telling Homer the truth, instead of explaining that his mother was alive but on the run, told the boy that his mother was dead. Abe made that choice because he thought it was easier. He thought a dead mother was simpler for a child to understand than a fugitive mother. And in a way, maybe he was right. But the cost of that lie was Homer's entire emotional development. Think about what that does to a kid. You're growing up in a house with a father who barely talks to you. Your mother, the one person who made you feel loved and safe, is suddenly gone. And the explanation you're given is that she died. She didn't choose to leave. She didn't have somewhere better to be. She just stopped existing, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't write her a letter. You can't call her. You can't ask her why. She's just gone. And the world keeps moving, and you're supposed to keep moving with it. Homer internalized that loss the way a lot of children do. He didn't process it. He didn't talk about it. He just found other things to fill the space where his mother used to be. And the show, with remarkable and honestly heartbreaking subtlety, reveals exactly what Homer used to fill that space. Food. In the season 19 episode, Mona Leavesa, the show makes it explicit. Homer's compulsive eating, his obsession with donuts and pork chops and all the rest of it, started as a coping mechanism for the absence of his mother. He was a boy who lost the person who fed him and nurtured him and made him feel safe, and he spent the rest of his life trying to recreate that feeling with food. Every donut Homer eats, every plate of bacon, every trip to the Krusty Burger is a little boy reaching for something that reminds him of being held by his mother. That's not a joke, that's a diagnosis. The reunion between Homer and Mona in Mother Simpson is one of the most emotionally devastating scenes in the history of animation. Homer visits what he thinks is his mother's grave and discovers that it actually belongs to the poet Walt Whitman. His father had been passing off a stranger's headstone as his wife's grave for over 2 decades. Then Homer falls into an open grave, his own grave as it turns out, because someone had apparently already prepared one for him. And that's when Mona appears. She's older, she's been running for over 25 years, and she's standing at the edge of her son's empty grave, looking down at him. They have a reunion. It's messy and emotional and wonderful. Homer brings his mother home. She meets her grandchildren, she bonds with Lisa immediately because they share the same intelligence and the same social conscience. Everything seems like it might actually work out. But then Burns finds out that Mona is back in Springfield and he calls the FBI. Mona has to run again. She has to leave her son again. And the episode ends with one of the most famous shots in the entire series. Homer sitting alone on the hood of his car in the darkness, staring up at the stars. There's no dialogue, there's no joke. There's just a man watching the sky, knowing that his mother is out there somewhere, and he can't follow her. The director, David Silverman, later said that the drawing at the end was inserted because the scene was so touching that no other lines were needed. And during the original broadcast, Fox didn't air any promos over the credits. They just let the silence speak for itself. Writer and showrunner Bill Oakley has admitted that he always gets teary-eyed when he watches that ending. And if you've seen it, you understand why. Mona would appear a handful more times across the series. She came back in season 15's My Mother the Carjacker, where Burns once again had her arrested, and Homer tried desperately to break her out. He stole a prison bus to rescue her, but Mona, not wanting her son to become a fugitive too, tased him and pushed him off the bus before it went off a cliff. Homer thought she was dead again. He had to mourn her again. And once again, it turned out she had survived. A coded message in the newspaper let Homer know she was still alive. And then came Mona Leaves A. Season 19, Episode 19, aired on May 11th, 2008, Mother's Day. And this time, Mona came home for good. She was done running. She was done with activism. She was tired and old, and she just wanted to be with her son and his family for whatever time she had left. But Homer couldn't do it. He couldn't let her back in. He had been hurt too many times. She had left him when he was a child. She had left him as an adult. Twice. Every time she came back, she left again. And every time she left, it ripped open the same wound that had been bleeding since he was a little boy sitting in an empty house wondering why his mother wasn't coming home. Homer told her he wouldn't forgive her. He told her to leave by morning. He was cold and angry and defensive in the way that only someone who has been truly devastated by love can be. And then, later that night, lying in bed, the anger drained out of him. He realized he was wrong. He got up and made her a card, an apology, a handmade gesture of the kind that Homer Simpson does better than anyone. He walked downstairs to give it to her. And he found her sitting in the chair by the fireplace, silent, still, her eyes open. Mona Simpson had died, alone, in front of a dying fire, while her son was upstairs refusing to forgive her. Homer never got to give her the card. He never got to say he was sorry. He never got to tell her that he understood, that he knew she didn't want to leave, that he loved her despite everything. The last words Homer Simpson ever said to his mother were words of anger, and he has to live with that for the rest of his life. The rest of the episode follows Homer trying to honor Mona's final wishes by carrying her ashes to the top of a mountain at a specific time. It turns out to be one last act of protest against Burns because that's who Mona was to the end. But the scene that sticks with you, the scene that people remember 20 years later, is Homer walking downstairs with a handmade card and finding an empty chair. That's the image, that's the wound, and it never heals. Glenn Close, who voiced Mona in every appearance, brought a quiet dignity to the character that made the emotional moments land with a weight that animation rarely achieves. The show dedicated the episode to the memories of Dan Castellaneta's mother and Harry Shearer's mother, both of whom had recently passed away. It was personal for the people who made it, and you can feel that in every frame. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now, everything we just talked about, the absent mother, the lying father, the food, the grief, the inability to process emotions in any healthy way, all of that was happening inside Homer long before the show even started. By the time we meet Homer in that very first Christmas episode, he's already carrying 30 years of unresolved trauma. He's already been shaped by it, bent by it, broken by it in ways that he doesn't even understand himself. But to see how that broken boy became the man we know, we need to follow him through the next chapter of his life. The chapter where, despite everything, Homer Simpson managed to find the one thing that would save him. He found Marge. Despite everything his childhood did to him, despite the absent mother and the distant father and the house that felt empty even when someone was home, Homer Simpson made it to Springfield High School. He wasn't a good student, that's putting it mildly. Homer was, by almost every academic measure, a disaster. He failed remedial science. He didn't technically graduate. He spent more time cutting class and getting into trouble than he did learning anything useful. And at some point before high school even started, Homer did something that would haunt him with guilt for years. He convinced his best friend Barney Gumble to try a beer. Barney was a promising student at the time. The show tells us that Barney was sharp, focused, and preparing for Harvard. He was on track for a real future, and Homer, who had already developed a taste for alcohol that almost certainly came from watching his father drink, pushed a can of beer on Barney while Abe was passed out. Barney took one sip and that was it. He took to alcohol immediately. His entire trajectory changed. The promising student became the town drunk, a stumbling, belching wreck who would spend the next 3 decades glued to a bar stool at Moe's Tavern. Homer did that. He doesn't talk about it much, but the show makes it clear that Homer knows he ruined Barney's life with a single can of beer. And that knowledge sits somewhere in the back of his mind alongside all the other things he's not equipped to process. But high school also gave Homer the single greatest gift he would ever receive. It gave him Marge Bouvier. The show's definitive account of how Homer and Marge met comes from the Season 2 episode The Way We Was, which aired on January 31st, 1991. It's told as a flashback with Homer and Marge recounting their high school days to Bart and Lisa after the television breaks. In the episode, Homer is a long-haired, slightly thinner version of himself. He's still not smart. He's still not cool. He's still the kid that most people in the school either ignore or actively make fun of. But one day, in the hallway, he sees Marge, and everything stops. Now the show uses a floating timeline, which means the era of Homer and Marge's high school years has shifted depending on when the episode aired. In the original telling, they're teenagers in the 1970s. A later episode, That 90s Show from season 19, re-anchored their youth to the 1990s, complete with Homer forming a grunge band called Sadgasm. The show has never been particularly concerned with keeping its timeline consistent, and at this point, 37 seasons in, the specific decade doesn't really matter. What matters is the emotional truth of the story, and that truth has never changed. Homer saw Marge, and he fell in love, instantly, completely. Without reservation or strategy or any of the things that a smarter, more socially capable person might bring to the situation. Homer just looked at this woman with the tall blue hair and the kind eyes, and he knew. He didn't know how to talk to her. He didn't know how to impress her. He was Homer Simpson. He had nothing going for him. But he wanted to be near her, and that desire was stronger than his fear of rejection. In The Way We Was, Homer deliberately gets himself in trouble, so he'll be sent to detention because he noticed that Marge was tutoring students there. It's a stupid plan, it's a Homer plan. But it works in the sense that it puts him in the same room as her. He asks her to tutor him in French. She agrees. And over the course of their tutoring sessions, something genuinely real develops between them. Homer is not charming in the traditional sense. He's not smooth. He doesn't have good lines or a cool car or any of the things that high school movies tell you matter. What Homer has is sincerity. He is completely, transparently, almost painfully honest about who he is and how he feels. And for Marge, who has spent her life surrounded by people performing various versions of who they think they should be, Homer's total lack of pretense is like a breath of fresh air. But there's a complication. Artie Ziff. Artie is everything Homer is not. He's smart, he's articulate, he's ambitious, he's got the vocabulary and the confidence and the kind of self-assured charm that impresses parents and teachers and anyone who values surface-level competence. Artie takes Marge to prom. Homer, who had worked up the courage to ask her, is left standing alone. And on prom night, Artie gets aggressive with Marge in the car. He pushes boundaries she doesn't want pushed. Marge shuts him down, gets out of the car, and walks home. On the way home, she passes Homer. He's walking along the road, alone, defeated, having gone to prom by himself after she turned him down. His suit is rumpled, his shoulders are slumped. He is the picture of a man who has been told, once again, that he is not enough. And Marge chooses him. She chooses the honest man over the impressive one. She chooses the guy who can't string together a clever sentence, but who has never once been anything other than exactly what he appears to be. She chooses Homer Simpson. And that choice, that single decision on a road in Springfield after a disastrous prom night, is the foundation on which the entire show is built. Without Marge choosing Homer, there is no family. There is no Bart, no Lisa, no Maggie. There is no show. Everything starts here, on a dark road with a girl choosing sincerity over sophistication. Homer and Marge didn't have an easy road after high school. They were young, they were broke. Homer still hadn't graduated. At various points in the show's retelling of their early years, Homer worked at a series of dead-end jobs. He briefly served in the United States Army, though he never saw combat and was discharged early due to a clerical error. He and Marge got an apartment together at a place called Springfield Place. Marge got accepted to college. To pay for her tuition, Homer took a job at his father's business, Simpson Laser Tag. The show tells us that Abe gave Homer the job as one of his rare attempts at fatherly support. Their relationship hit rough patches. In the revised backstory from that 90s show, Homer and Marge broke up for a time while Marge fell for a college professor. Homer spiraled, forming the grunge band Sadgasm and sinking into depression. Marge eventually realized she loved Homer and came back to him. The specifics shift depending on which era the show places their youth in, but the pattern is always the same. Homer and Marge get tested, they drift apart, and then Marge comes back. Because she sees something in Homer that nobody else can see. Something worth choosing, something worth saving, something that all the intelligence and ambition and polish in the world can't replicate. After they got back together for good, Homer and Marge got married. And then came the event that changed Homer's life more fundamentally than anything since his mother's disappearance. Marge got pregnant with Bart. The pregnancy wasn't planned. Homer and Marge were in their early to mid-20s, depending on which version of the timeline you're working with. They weren't ready. They didn't have the money. They didn't have a real plan. But the baby was coming regardless, and Homer did what Homer always does when life presents him with a situation he can't talk his way out of. He put his head down and went to work. At the time, Homer was working at a place called Sir Put-a-Lot's Merry Old Fun Center, spinning the crank on a windmill. It was not the kind of job that supports a family, so Homer applied to the Springfield nuclear power plant and got hired as a safety inspector in Sector 7G, working under Charles Montgomery Burns, the ancient, skeletal, incomprehensibly wealthy owner of the plant. Burns would become one of the defining figures in Homer's life, a man who could never remember Homer's name despite the fact that Homer had worked for him for decades. The job was soul-crushing, the hours were long, the work was meaningless. Homer's direct supervisor was a man named Waylon Smithers who was entirely devoted to Burns and viewed the workers as expendable parts of a machine that existed solely to make his employer richer. But the job paid. It paid enough for a house in Springfield. It paid enough for a car. It paid enough to keep the lights on and the refrigerator full and a roof over the head of the woman Homer loved and the baby that was on the way. So Homer took the job and he stayed. Then came Lisa, the second child. Another unplanned pregnancy, though the show is less explicit about the circumstances. Lisa was different from Bart in almost every conceivable way. She was quiet, thoughtful, deeply intelligent, musically gifted. She started playing the saxophone at a remarkably young age. She was in many ways the child that Homer could least understand but most admired. The intellectual gulf between Homer and Lisa would become one of the great emotional through lines of the entire series. A father who adores his daughter but lacks the mental tools to connect with her on the level she needs. And then came the moment, the one that changes everything. The one that the entire show circles back to again and again because it contains the single most important truth about who Homer Simpson really is. Season 6, Episode 13, And Maggie Makes 3. It aired on January 22, 1995. And if you've never seen it, I need you to understand that what I'm about to describe is widely regarded as one of the greatest moments in the entire history of television animation. Not just The Simpsons, animation, period. The episode is structured as a flashback. The kids notice that there are no baby pictures of Maggie anywhere in the house and ask Homer why. He tells them the story. Before Maggie was born, Homer had finally achieved his dream. He had saved up enough money, paid off all his debts, and quit his job at the nuclear power plant. He walked into Burns' office, told his boss exactly what he thought of him, literally burned a bridge by setting fire to a sign, and walked out. He had gotten a job at a bowling alley. Bowling was the one thing Homer genuinely loved besides his family. It wasn't glamorous, it didn't pay as much. But for the first time in his adult life, Homer was happy, genuinely uncomplicated, full-body happy. The show makes a point of this. It shows us what Homer looks like when he's doing something he actually wants to do, and it's a different person. The tension leaves his face. The anger drains out of his voice. He is at peace in a way that we almost never see him. And then Marge told him she was pregnant with Maggie. Homer's reaction is devastation. Not because he doesn't want the baby, but because he knows what the baby means. He can't support a family of 5 on a bowling alley salary. He needs the plant job. He needs the job he hates, the job that makes him miserable, the job that is slowly killing every dream he ever had. He needs to go back to Burns, and so Homer does what Homer always does. He swallows his pride. He drives back to the plant. He walks into Burns' office and asks for his job back. Burns, because Burns is the kind of man who views other people's suffering as entertainment, agrees to give Homer his old position. But there's a condition. Burns installs a plaque in Homer's workspace, right where he has to see it every single day, every single shift, for the rest of his working life. The plaque reads, "Don't forget, you're here forever." It's cruel, it's petty. It's Burns at his most casually sadistic. The plaque is designed to break Homer's spirit, to remind him every time he looks up from his console that he gave up his dream and he's never getting it out, that he's trapped, that this is all there is. And then the episode cuts to the present. The kids ask Homer again where Maggie's baby pictures are. He tells them to look somewhere they've never looked before. And the camera follows them to Homer's workstation at the plant. And there, on the wall, is the plaque. But it looks different now. Homer has covered parts of the letters with photos of Maggie, photos of his youngest daughter, the baby who brought him back to this place. He's arranged them so that the plaque no longer reads, "Don't forget, you're here forever." It now reads, "Do it for her." That's the scene. That's the image. And if you need a minute, take one, because I've watched this episode probably 20 times and it still gets me. Do it for her. 3 words made out of photographs arranged over a monument to despair. 3 words that contain the entire thesis of Homer Simpson's life. He is not here because he wants to be. He is not here because he's too stupid to do anything else. He is not here because he doesn't have dreams or desires or a vision of what his life could be. Homer Simpson is here, at this job, in this chair, staring at this console because he has a daughter, because he has a family, because the people he loves need him to be here. And that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. And this is why Homer Simpson is not a joke. This is why he's not just a cartoon dad. This is why millions of people around the world feel something real when they watch this show. Because we all know what it's like to sit in a chair you don't want to sit in, doing work you don't want to do, in a building you'd rather burn down. And the thing that keeps us in that chair, the only thing, is the person or the people waiting for us at home. Homer gets that. He understands it in his bones. He doesn't need a high IQ to understand it. He just needs to love his family, and that he does, completely, recklessly, with everything he has. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And while we're talking about the power plant, we need to talk about the man who owns it. Because you can't understand Homer's daily existence without understanding the person who controls it. Charles Montgomery Burns, the oldest, richest, and most cartoonishly evil man in Springfield. Voiced by Harry Shearer with a kind of gleeful malevolence that somehow manages to be both terrifying and hilarious. Burns is Homer's boss, Homer's nemesis, and in a strange way, Homer's most consistent relationship outside of his family. Homer has worked for Burns for the entirety of the show's run. That's over 35 years in real time. And in all of that time, Burns has never once been able to consistently remember Homer's name. That detail, which the show plays as a running gag, is actually one of the cruelest things about Homer's life when you stop and think about it. Homer goes to this building every day. He sits at this console every shift. He has been involved in incidents that nearly destroyed the plant, the town, and arguably the surrounding region on multiple occasions. Homer has interacted directly with Burns in dozens of episodes, sometimes saving his life, sometimes nearly killing him, sometimes doing both in the same episode. And Burns still looks at him and says, "Who are you?" The show explored this dynamic most powerfully in the Season 6 two-parter Who Shot Mr. Burns, which aired on May 21st, 1995 and September 17th, 1995, as a cliffhanger between seasons. It was one of the most famous cliffhangers in television history, deliberately modeled after the Dallas Who Shot J.R. storyline. The mystery of Who Shot Burns became a national conversation. Fox even aired a special called Springfield's Most Wanted to fuel the speculation. And the answer, revealed in the Season 7 premiere, was that Maggie Simpson, a baby, accidentally shot Burns while he was trying to steal candy from her. But the reason Burns got shot in the first place is directly connected to Homer. In the first part of the episode, Homer becomes obsessed with getting Burns to remember his name. He sends donuts with his name on them. He spray paints his name on Burns' office wall. He physically assaults his boss in an attempt to force recognition. Nothing works. Burns cannot or will not commit the name Homer Simpson to memory. And the reason this drives Homer so crazy is because being invisible to the person who controls your livelihood is a special kind of dehumanizing. Homer can handle being yelled at. He can handle being insulted. He can handle being the butt of the joke. What he cannot handle is not existing. And in Burns' eyes, Homer Simpson doesn't exist. He's a body in a chair in Sector 7G and nothing more. Burns represents everything that the real world does to people like Homer. He's the system that takes your labor and gives you nothing in return. He's the boss who profits from your suffering and can't be bothered to learn your name. He's the reminder that in the machinery of capitalism, the individual worker is interchangeable and expendable and ultimately meaningless to the people at the top. Burns is Homer's daily confrontation with the fact that the world doesn't care about him. And Homer's response to that confrontation is the same response he has to everything else in his life. He endures it, he shows up the next day, he sits back down in the chair, he does it for her. The drinking is the other thing we need to address. Because Homer's relationship with alcohol is not just a character quirk. It's not just a running joke about Duff Beer and Moe's Tavern and stumbling home at 2 a.m. Homer's drinking is a symptom of the same disease that everything else in his life is a symptom of. Pain, unprocessed, unexamined, decades-old pain. Homer drinks the way his father drank. He drinks the way the men in his life have always drunk. He drinks at Moe's Tavern, which is less a bar and more a waiting room. A place where men go to sit in the space between work and home, between the job that doesn't value them and the family that needs them, trying to find enough numbness to make the transition from one to the other without feeling every sharp edge along the way. The show has treated Homer's drinking with varying degrees of seriousness across its run. In the early seasons, it's mostly played for comedy. Homer chugging a beer, Homer sneaking a drink, Homer embarrassing himself at a party because he's had too much. But as the show matured, the drinking started to carry more weight. There are episodes where Homer's alcoholism creates real consequences, where Marge genuinely worries, where the kids are affected, where the family dynamic shifts from comedy to something much closer to drama. In the Season 4 episode Duffless, Homer is arrested for driving under the influence, and Marge challenges him to go a full month without beer. The episode follows Homer's struggle with sobriety and uses it to explore the uncomfortable truth that Homer doesn't know who he is without alcohol. Drinking is woven so deeply into his identity, his social life, his coping mechanisms, his daily routine, that removing it feels like removing a part of himself. He makes it through the month, barely, and the episode ends with him choosing to ride a bicycle with Marge instead of going back to Moe's. It's a small victory, a temporary one probably, given that the status quo resets by the next episode. But it's a victory nonetheless. Homer drinks because his mother left and nobody explained why. He drinks because his father is disappointed in him and he doesn't know how to fix it. He drinks because his brain has been damaged since he was 6, and the world keeps expecting things from him that he can't deliver. He drinks because he works at a job that is slowly killing his soul for a man who doesn't know he's alive. He drinks because the gap between the life he has and the life he wanted is too wide to bridge with anything other than a substance that makes the gap disappear for a few hours at a time. And the most devastating thing about Homer's drinking is that the show has made it clear he knows. He's not entirely blind to what he's doing. In quiet moments, in the rare episodes where the comedy pulls back far enough for the real Homer to surface, you can see the awareness in his face. He knows the beer is a crutch. He knows Moe's Tavern is a dead end. He knows that every night he spends on that bar stool is a night he's not spending with his kids. But the awareness doesn't translate to change because awareness and change require two different kinds of strength. And Homer only has one of them. He can see the problem. He just can't solve it. And so he orders another round and tells Moe a joke and walks home in the dark and hopes that tomorrow will be better, even though he has no evidence that it will be. Now, here's the thing about Homer's intelligence, or lack of it, that the show waited 12 seasons to reveal, because it turns out that Homer's stupidity isn't just a character trait. It's not just genetics. It's not just the Simpson gene that supposedly makes the men of the family dumber with each generation. There's a physical, medical explanation for why Homer J. Simpson operates at the level he does. And when the show finally reveals it, it reframes everything you've ever laughed at about this character in a way that is both funny and profoundly sad. Season 12, Episode 9, HOMR, with the R written backwards like in the Russian alphabet. The episode aired on January 7, 2001. It was written by Al Jean, who at that point was in his second stint as showrunner, the man who would go on to steer the show for the next 2 decades. And this episode won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program, which tells you something about how seriously the television industry took what it was doing. The setup is classic Homer. He loses the family's life savings by investing in a failed animation company. To make money, he takes a job as a human guinea pig at a medical testing center. During the experiments, the doctors take a 3-dimensional X-ray of Homer's brain and notice something strange. There's an object lodged in his right frontal lobe. After rotating the image, they identify it. It's a crayon, a Crayola crayon to be specific. Blue. It's been in there since Homer was 6 years old. The show gives us the flashback. Little Homer, sitting on the floor, decided to see how many crayons he could stick up his nose. He managed to get 16 up there. Then he sneezed and 15 came out. The 16th one didn't. It went up and it stayed up and it lodged itself in his brain. And it has been there, pressing against his frontal lobe, suppressing his cognitive function for his entire life. The doctors tell Homer that removing the crayon could dramatically increase his intelligence, or it could kill him. Homer, being Homer, hears this as increase my killing power and agrees to the surgery. The crayon is removed. And almost immediately, Homer changes. His IQ jumps by about 50 points, bringing it up to approximately 105. That's not genius level. That's not even particularly high. That's average. Homer's brain, freed from the crayon that had been suppressing it for decades, doesn't make him a genius. It makes him normal. And that distinction matters because it means that the Homer we've been watching for 12 seasons wasn't naturally stupid. He was injured. He was a normal man whose brain had been damaged by a childhood accident that nobody ever caught. Once Homer becomes smarter, the show explores what that actually means for his life. And the answer's complicated. On one hand, Homer bonds with Lisa in a way he never has before. For the first time, he can talk to his daughter on her level. He can understand her references. He can appreciate her music. He can follow her trains of thought without getting lost. The two of them share a connection that is beautiful and genuine and heartbreaking because you know it can't last. Lisa finally has a father she can relate to. And every scene of them together is charged with the knowledge that this is temporary. But being smart makes Homer miserable in every other area of his life. His friends at Moe's Tavern can't relate to him anymore. They think he's become a snob. Homer writes a safety report about the nuclear plant, documenting all of its violations, and sends it to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The report is thorough and accurate and completely devastating. The plant gets shut down temporarily. Every employee gets laid off. Homer's friends, the people he has been drinking with for years, burn him in effigy at the bar. They tell him he's not welcome anymore. Being smart made Homer competent, and competence made him dangerous, and being dangerous made him alone. Homer goes to Lisa and asks her why being intelligent hasn't made him happy. And Lisa, who is 8 years old and has been living this exact experience for her entire life, shows him a graph she made. As intelligence goes up, she tells him, happiness often goes down. She pauses. She says she makes a lot of graphs. And in that tiny moment, the show tells you everything about what it's like to be Lisa Simpson. She's been the smartest person in almost every room she's ever been in, and it has never once made her happy. Her father is experiencing for the first time what she lives with every day. Homer makes a decision. He goes to Moe, who apparently moonlights as an unlicensed surgeon, and he asks Moe to put the crayon back in his brain. Moe calls the procedure the old Crayola oblongata. He straps Homer to the pool table and uses a hammer and chisel to tap the crayon back up Homer's nose and into position. And just like that, Homer is himself again. The intelligence drains out of him, the clarity fades, the awareness dissolves. He's back to being the man who thinks extended warranties are a good deal and chants defense at the television while watching football. But before the procedure, Homer wrote Lisa a letter, and the letter reads, "Lisa, I'm taking the coward's way out. But before I do, I just want you to know that being smart made me appreciate how amazing you really are." Lisa finds the letter, she reads it, and she cries because her father, for one brief window of time, understood what it was like to be her. He saw the world through her eyes. He felt the loneliness and the isolation and the constant low hum of being different from everyone around you. And then he chose to give it up. He chose to go back to being dumb because being dumb was the only way he knew how to exist in his own life. He chose happiness over understanding. And the letter, that one page of handwritten words, is the bridge he built between those two versions of himself, a note from the man he could have been to the daughter he'll never quite reach. That episode reframes the entire show, because from that point on, every time Homer does something stupid, every time the audience laughs at one of his blunders, there's a shadow underneath the laughter. That's not natural stupidity you're watching. That's brain damage. That's a crayon. That's a 6-year-old boy who shoved something into his own head and had his future quietly, permanently diminished without anyone ever knowing it happened. Homer Simpson is not dumb because he was born that way. Homer Simpson is dumb because when he was a child, he hurt himself and nobody noticed and nobody helped and nobody ever fixed it. And the one time someone did fix it, he asked them to break it again because the world he lived in had no place for a smarter version of himself. That is not a comedy. That is a tragedy that happens to be funny. And yet the show has always been careful to balance that tragedy with something else, something warmer, something that reminds you that Homer, for all his limitations, is capable of extraordinary things when the stakes are high enough. There's a moment in the Season 2 episode Lisa's Substitute that captures this perfectly. The episode, which aired on April 25, 1991, introduces Mr. Bergstrom, Lisa's temporary substitute teacher, voiced by Dustin Hoffman under the pseudonym Sam Edick. Bergstrom is everything that Lisa has been desperately searching for. He's intelligent, he's passionate, he takes her seriously, he treats her like her ideas matter. For one brief, beautiful stretch of time, Lisa has an adult in her life who speaks her language and sees the world the way she sees it. But Bergstrom is temporary, he's a substitute. When the regular teacher comes back, he leaves, and Lisa is devastated. She runs after him at the train station, sobbing, begging him to stay, and Bergstrom hands her a folded note. He tells her that whenever she feels alone, whenever she feels like nobody understands her, she should read it. Lisa opens the note. It says, "You are Lisa Simpson." That's the note. 4 words. And they contain everything Lisa needs, the validation that she is enough, that who she is, exactly as she is something worth being. Lisa takes the note home and treasures it. But the other half of the episode is about Homer, and it's the half that matters for our story. After Bergstrom leaves, Lisa comes home and she's angry. She's angry at a world that takes away the few people who understand her. And she takes that anger out on Homer. She calls him a baboon. She tells him he's a terrible father. She says the things that children say when they're hurt and don't have anywhere else to put the hurt except on the nearest available target. And Homer takes it. He doesn't yell back. He doesn't strangle anyone. He stands there and absorbs the words from his 8-year-old daughter, and you can see in his face that every single one of them hits. Because he knows she's not entirely wrong. He knows he's not the father she deserves. He knows he can't be Mr. Bergstrom. He can't explain the world to Lisa the way Bergstrom did. He can't answer her questions or challenge her ideas or meet her where she lives intellectually. All he can do is be there. And sometimes being there isn't enough. But it's all he has. After Lisa goes to her room, Homer goes upstairs to check on Bart, who is dealing with his own crisis after losing a class election. Then he goes to Maggie's room. The baby is crying. Homer picks her up and she stops. She just stops. The moment Homer holds her, the crying ends. And Homer looks at this baby in his arms, this small, perfect person who needs nothing from him except his presence, and he smiles. Because this is the one arena where Homer is an unqualified success. He can hold a baby, he can be warm, he can show up, he can make the crying stop. And for a man who fails at almost everything else, that's not nothing. Then there's Homer's spiritual life, which the show has explored with surprising depth across its run. Homer is not a devout man. He sleeps through church. He once argued with God in a dream. He negotiated with the devil in a Treehouse of Horror episode. In the Season 8 episode El Viaje Misterioso de Nuestro Homer, Homer eats dangerously hot chili peppers at a cook-off and hallucinates a vision quest guided by a mystical space coyote, voiced by Johnny Cash. The coyote tells Homer that he needs to find his soulmate. Homer spends the episode terrified that Marge might not be his soulmate, that they might not be as connected as he needs them to be. The episode resolves with Homer realizing that Marge is, in fact, his soulmate, and the connection between them is real, even if Homer lacks the vocabulary to describe it. That spiritual uncertainty is a consistent thread in Homer's character. He believes in God, mostly, but he also believes in luck and coincidence and the general chaos of a universe that he does not and cannot understand. Homer's faith is the faith of a man who has been through too much to believe that everything happens for a reason, but not enough to believe that nothing does. He occupies the messy, confused middle ground between belief and doubt, which is exactly where the majority of real people live. And the show has always treated that confusion with respect, even when it's played for laughs. In the Season 4 episode Homer the Heretic, Homer stops going to church and instead stays home in his bathrobe, eating waffles and dancing in his underwear. He has the time of his life, but then his house catches fire and it's Ned Flanders who saves him. It's the people from the church who rebuild his home, and the episode ends with Homer going back to church, not because he had a religious awakening, but because the community showed up for him, and he feels obligated to show up for them in return. That's Homer's version of faith. It's not spiritual, it's not transcendent. It's transactional in the most human way possible. You helped me, so I'll sit in your pew. That's the deal. And then there's the Gorge, Springfield Gorge, Season 2, Episode 8, Bart the Daredevil. Homer, in an attempt to teach Bart a lesson about the dangers of performing stunts, decides to jump the gorge on a skateboard to show Bart how dangerous it is. It's an absurd plan. It's a Homer plan. He races down the ramp, launches off the edge, and doesn't make it. He falls. He plummets into the gorge, slamming against the rocks on the way down in one of the most replayed pieces of animation in television history. And then, as the ambulance carries him away on a stretcher, the stretcher hits a bump, and Homer rolls right back into the gorge and falls again. The scene is slapstick. It's cartoon violence at its purest. But it's also, if you let yourself think about it for even a second, a perfect metaphor for Homer's entire existence. He falls, he gets up, he falls again. The universe will not stop hitting him, and he will not stop getting back up. Homer's skull, according to the show's internal canon, is a 1/4 inch thicker than the average human skull. The show has called this Homer Simpson syndrome. It's the in-universe explanation for why Homer can survive things that would kill anyone else. Falls, explosions, animal attacks, electrocutions, being run over, being shot at, having every bone in his body broken. Homer endures physical punishment that would liquefy a normal person because his body, like the rest of him, is built for endurance rather than excellence. He's not fast, he's not strong, he's not agile, but he's durable. He can take a hit, he can take 100 hits, and when the hitting stops, he's still there, still standing, still Homer. That durability is the physical manifestation of the same quality that defines him emotionally. Homer Simpson is a survivor. Not in the heroic triumph over adversity, inspirational poster sense of the word. He doesn't defeat his problems, he outlasts them. He just keeps going, keeps getting up, keeps driving to work, keeps coming home, keeps eating the donuts and drinking the beer and falling asleep on the couch and waking up the next morning and doing the whole thing again, because what else is there? What's the alternative? Stop? Give up? Let the gorge win? That's not Homer. Homer falls and falls and falls, and every time he hits the bottom, he somehow finds a way to climb back to the top, even if it's just so he can fall again. And one person in the show's entire history actually noticed. One character looked at Homer Simpson's life from the outside and had the exact reaction that a normal, rational human being would have when confronted with the absurdity of Homer's existence. His name was Frank Grimes, and the episode that told his story is the highest-rated episode of The Simpsons on IMDb, sitting at 9.3 out of 10. It aired on May 4th, 1997, Season 8, Episode 23, Homer's Enemy, written by John Swartzwelder and directed by Jim Reardon. And it's the episode that asked the question that the show had been carefully avoiding for 8 years. What happens when a real person walks into Homer Simpson's world? Frank Grimes was the anti-Homer. He was born into poverty. He was abandoned as a child and left to fend for himself. He put himself through school by studying at night while working at a factory during the day. He earned a degree in nuclear physics through sheer force of will. Everything he ever had, every achievement, every qualification, every single step forward in his life was earned through grinding, relentless, exhausting effort. He was the kind of person that motivational posters are written about. The guy who started with nothing and built something through hard work alone. And then he got a job at the Springfield nuclear power plant, and he met Homer, who never earned anything. Homer, who got his job through a combination of luck and the fact that the plant would hire almost anyone. Homer, who sleeps at his console. Homer, who eats donuts during safety drills. Homer, who has caused more near meltdowns than anyone in the plant's history and somehow still hasn't been fired. Homer, who lives in a nice house with a loving wife and 3 kids and 2 cars and a dog. Homer, who has been to space. Homer, who has won a Grammy Award as part of a barbershop quartet called the B-Sharps. Homer, who once met former President Gerald Ford. Homer, who by any reasonable measure should be homeless or in prison or dead, but who instead lives a life that Frank Grimes, with all his effort and all his sacrifice, will never achieve. Frank Grimes can't handle it. The injustice of it eats him alive. He confronts Homer repeatedly. He tries to expose Homer's incompetence to the other workers, to Burns, to anyone who will listen, but nobody cares. Nobody sees the problem. Homer is just Homer. He's always been this way. The other employees have long since stopped expecting anything from him. They've accepted the reality that Homer Simpson exists in a different universe than the rest of them. A universe where consequences don't stick and failure doesn't count. And the rules that govern everyone else's life simply don't apply. Grimes spirals. He gets more and more frustrated, more and more unhinged. The gap between how hard he has worked and how easy Homer has it drives him to the breaking point. In the climax of the episode, Grimes mockingly pretends to be Homer. He runs around the plant acting like an idiot, grabbing live wires without checking if they're safe, because that's what Homer does, and Homer never faces any consequences. But Grimes isn't Homer. The rules do apply to him. He grabs a high-voltage cable and is electrocuted. He dies. At the funeral, Homer falls asleep during the eulogy. The other mourners, disturbed by Homer's snoring, laugh nervously. The episode ends with Grimes being buried while Homer, unconscious and oblivious, provides the soundtrack. It is the darkest episode the show ever produced, and it works because it's asking a question that's genuinely uncomfortable. Is Homer lovable, or is he horrifying? Is the fact that he coasts through life on luck and the tolerance of others a charming quirk, or is it an indictment of a society that rewards mediocrity and punishes effort? The show doesn't give you a clean answer. It lets the discomfort sit there. It lets you laugh at Homer sleeping at the funeral and then immediately feel terrible for laughing. Frank Grimes is what happens when you apply the logic of the real world to a cartoon. And the fact that the real world logic loses, that Grimes is the one who dies while Homer continues his blessed, oblivious existence, tells you something about the show's worldview that is both comforting and deeply troubling. In The Simpsons, the universe protects Homer, not because he deserves it, but because the show needs him alive in order to keep asking the question of whether he deserves it. And the funny thing is, Homer didn't dislike Grimes. He actually tried to be friends with him. He invited Grimes to dinner. He genuinely didn't understand why this man was so angry at him. And that's maybe the saddest part of the whole episode. Homer has no idea that his life is unfair. He doesn't see the disparity. He doesn't understand that other people work twice as hard for half as much. He's not malicious, he's not gloating, he's just Homer, living the only way he knows how in the only world he's ever known, completely unaware that the ground he walks on is made of other people's broken dreams. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now, we've talked about Homer's childhood. We've talked about the mother who left him and the father who failed him, and the crayon that was quietly stealing his potential for decades. We've talked about how he met Marge and built a family and sacrificed his dreams to support them. We've talked about the one time he became smart and chose to go back to being himself. And we've talked about the one person who saw through the cartoon logic and couldn't survive the unfairness of it. But we haven't talked about the relationship that quietly holds the entire show together. Not Homer and Bart, although that's important. Not Homer and Lisa, although that might be the most emotionally complex relationship in the series. We haven't talked about Homer and Marge, the marriage, the thing that keeps this man alive. Because if Homer's childhood is the wound, and his intelligence is the disability, and his job is the prison, then Marge is the reason he hasn't burned the whole thing down. She is the answer to every question the show has ever asked about why Homer doesn't just quit, why he doesn't just walk into traffic, why he doesn't just drink himself to death at Moe's Tavern, and let the whole sad story end where it probably should have ended years ago. The answer is always Marge. It has always been Marge. And the way the show handles their marriage across 37 seasons is one of the great achievements in television writing. Homer and Marge's relationship has been tested in ways that would destroy any real marriage. He has forgotten their anniversary more times than the show can count. He has embarrassed her in front of her family, her friends, her neighbors, and the entire town of Springfield. He has put the family's finances in jeopardy through bad investments, gambling, and impulse purchases that range from a snowplow business to a monorail ticket. He has been tempted by other women, most notably a co-worker named Mindy Simmons in the Season 5 episode The Last Temptation of Homer, where the show genuinely puts the audience in a position of wondering whether Homer will cheat. But he doesn't. He never does. Not in any canonical sense. Homer stumbles. He gets distracted. He makes decisions that are selfish and short-sighted and occasionally insane. But when it comes to Marge, when it comes to the fundamental question of whether this man is faithful to the woman he married, the answer is always yes. Not because Homer is virtuous, not because he has great willpower, but because Marge is the only thing in his life that he is genuinely terrified of losing. The show established this dynamic early. In the very first season, episode 9, Life on the Fast Lane, Marge is tempted by a smooth-talking bowling instructor named Jacques. He's romantic, he's attentive, he's everything Homer isn't. Marge is genuinely drawn to him. The episode builds toward what seems like an inevitable affair. Marge gets dressed up, she drives toward Jacques' apartment, and then, at the last moment, she passes the exit. She keeps driving. She goes to the nuclear plant. She walks through the doors and finds Homer at his workstation, and without a word, Homer picks her up in his arms and carries her out. That scene, a direct parody of the ending of An Officer and a Gentleman, is the template for every Homer and Marge episode that follows. The pattern is always the same. Something drives a wedge between them. Homer's stupidity, or his selfishness, or his insensitivity, or some external temptation pushes Marge to the brink. And then one of them makes a choice. Usually Homer. Usually a grand gesture that is equal parts desperate and sincere. And they come back together, not because the problems are solved, not because anything has fundamentally changed, but because they love each other more than they love the idea of an easier life. Marge Bouvier Simpson is the most patient woman in fiction. She has endured things that would send any reasonable person to a divorce lawyer. But Marge stays, and the show has been remarkably honest about why she stays. It's not because she's weak. It's not because she doesn't have options. The show has given Marge multiple opportunities to leave. Multiple men have shown interest in her. She's been offered lives that would be objectively better in almost every measurable way, and she keeps choosing Homer. She chooses him because she sees what nobody else can see. She sees the man who made her a card when he couldn't afford a gift. She sees the man who drives to work every day at a job that's killing him because his family needs the paycheck. She sees the man who stood on a dark road on prom night with nothing to offer and offered it anyway. Marge sees the Homer that Homer can't see in himself, and by seeing it, she keeps it alive. There's a moment in the season 8 episode A Millhouse Divided where Marge and Homer attend a dinner party and watch another couple, Kirk and Luann Van Houten, get divorced in real time. The evening devolves into a screaming match, and Kirk and Luann's marriage ends right there at the table. Marge goes home shaken. She looks at her own marriage and sees cracks. She sees the same patterns, the same neglect, the same taking each other for granted. And she tells Homer that she doesn't want to end up like the Van Houtens. Homer, to his enormous credit, hears her. He doesn't dismiss it. He doesn't make a joke. He goes to Reverend Lovejoy and essentially invalidates their marriage so that he can propose to Marge all over again. He organizes a surprise ceremony. It's chaotic and imperfect and very Homer, but it's real. And when he stands in front of her and says the words again for the second time, you can see in Marge's face that this is why she stays. Because underneath everything, Homer is trying. He's always trying. He doesn't always succeed. He rarely succeeds. But the effort is genuine and the love is real. And for Marge, that's enough. The show has also explored what Homer's relationship with each of his children tells us about him as a person. And every one of those relationships is a mirror reflecting a different part of his damage. With Bart, it's the most volatile and honestly, the most honest. Homer and Bart have a relationship that is built on friction. Homer strangles Bart. He yells at him. He calls him names. He has, across 37 seasons, been physically rough with his son in ways that the show treats as a running gag, but that, if you step back and look at it honestly, are disturbing. The strangling gag, which was one of the show's most iconic recurring bits, has been quietly retired in recent seasons. The show's executive producer, James L. Brooks, has denied that there was any official policy change, but the gag has effectively disappeared. And its disappearance tells you that even the people making the show understand that some things don't age well. But underneath the fighting, Homer and Bart have a bond that is raw and real, and built on the one thing they have in common. They're both screw-ups. They're both the family member who can't seem to get it right. They're both the one who gets in trouble and needs to be bailed out. Homer sees himself in Bart, and that recognition is both the source of his frustration and the source of his love. He doesn't want Bart to end up like him. He wants more for his son. But he has no idea how to give it to him because nobody ever gave it to Homer. With Lisa, it's the opposite problem. Homer adores Lisa. He is in awe of her intelligence, her talent, her moral compass. But he can't reach her. They exist on different intellectual planes, and the distance between them is a constant source of quiet sadness for both of them. Lisa wants a father who can engage with her ideas. Homer wants to be that father and simply can't. The HOMR episode gave them one brief window of connection, and then Homer closed it because he couldn't function in the world that connection required him to live in. Their relationship is defined by love across an unbridgeable gap, and it's one of the most achingly realistic depictions of a parent-child dynamic in any medium. With Maggie, it's the purest. Maggie is a baby. She can't talk. She can't judge him. She can't be disappointed in him. And Homer's love for Maggie is the one emotion he expresses without any filter or defense mechanism or joke attached to it. Do it for her. That's Maggie. That's the simplest, most uncomplicated love in Homer's life. The love that doesn't require him to be smart or successful or anything other than present. Maggie just needs him to be there, and he is, every day. That's the deal. That's the one thing Homer Simpson never fails at, showing up. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. There's one more relationship in Homer's life that we need to talk about before we get to the big moments that define his story in the later years. And it's the relationship that created him, the relationship that broke him, the relationship that taught him, through decades of quiet example, exactly how not to be a father. Homer and his dad, Homer and Abraham Simpson. Abe Simpson is one of the saddest characters in the show, and he's also one of the funniest, which is exactly the kind of contradiction that The Simpsons has always been brilliant at holding in balance. On the surface, Grandpa Simpson is a joke. He's an old man in a retirement home who tells long, meandering stories that go nowhere. He falls asleep mid-sentence. He yells at clouds. He calls things by the wrong names. He is, in the broadest sense, the show's most reliable source of elderly absurdity. But underneath all of that, Abe is a man who destroyed his relationship with his only son and has spent the last several decades watching the consequences of that destruction play out in real time without knowing how to fix any of it. We've already talked about the lie that Mona was dead. That single decision, that one act of emotional cowardice disguised as parental protection, is the crack in the foundation of Homer's entire life. Every time Homer reaches for food instead of processing his feelings, that's the lie. Every time Homer pushes someone away who's trying to get close to him, that's the lie. Every time Homer fails to tell Marge or Bart or Lisa how he really feels, choosing instead to make a joke or change the subject or just leave the room, that's the lie. Abe taught Homer, through his actions and his silence and his inability to be honest about the most important event of their shared life, that emotions are things you bury. That truth is something you hide when it's too painful to say out loud. That the people you love are better off not knowing the real story. And the worst part is that Abe probably believed it. He probably convinced himself, in the way that people do when they make terrible decisions, that telling Homer his mother was dead was the kind thing, the merciful thing. He probably thought that a clean, permanent loss was easier for a child to absorb than the ambiguity of a mother who chose activism over her son. And in the short term, maybe he was right. Homer stopped asking questions. Homer stopped looking for his mother. Homer accepted the story and built his life around it. But in the long term, the lie poisoned everything. Because Homer grew up believing that the one person who truly loved him was gone forever. And that belief, that fundamental understanding of the world as a place where love disappears without warning, became the operating system of his entire personality. He eats because love might vanish at any moment, and food is the only comfort that never leaves. He drinks because numbness is safer than feeling. He avoids serious conversations because the last time the truth was supposed to set him free, the truth turned out to be another lie. And he oscillates wildly between smothering the people he loves and pushing them away because he has never been able to calibrate the distance between too close and too far. All of that traces back to Abe and the lie. The show doesn't let Abe off the hook for this, but it also doesn't turn him into a villain. That's important. Abe isn't a bad man. He's a limited one. He's a product of a generation that came home from a world war and was told to get on with things. Process your trauma by not processing it. Provide for your family by going to work every day and never complaining. Express love by keeping a roof over everyone's head and food on the table, because that's what men do. Abe did all of those things. He kept Homer alive. He kept him fed and clothed and sheltered. He did the minimum. And the minimum, as Homer's entire life demonstrates, is not enough. The dynamic between Homer and Abe is a cycle of neglect that the show traces with careful, almost documentary precision. Abe was emotionally absent for Homer, and Homer, despite his best efforts, is emotionally clumsy with Bart. The difference, and this is where the show's optimism lives, is that Homer is aware of the pattern. He doesn't always break it, he often repeats it, but he knows it's there. He sees himself becoming his father, and he fights against it, sometimes successfully and sometimes not. The strangling gag, the yelling, the moments of insensitivity, those are the pattern reasserting itself. The do it for her plaque, the handmade cards, the times Homer drops everything to help one of his kids, those are the man fighting against the pattern. And the fact that he fights at all, that he even tries, given what he was given, is a kind of heroism that the show has never gotten enough credit for exploring. Homer put Abe in the Springfield retirement castle. That's one of the first things the show established about their relationship. Homer took his aging father and placed him in a facility where he would be cared for by strangers. Abe hates it there. He's lonely and bored and surrounded by people who are waiting to die. Homer visits, but not enough. He forgets, or he gets busy, or he simply doesn't want to deal with the guilt of sitting across from the man who raised him badly and pretending everything is fine. But there are moments, small ones, moments where Homer and Abe connect in a way that feels real. And in those moments you can see what their relationship could have been If Abe had been a better father, or if Homer had been given the tools to be a better son. There's a moment in the season 2 episode Grandpa versus Sexual Inadequacy where Homer and Abe have a fight, and Homer says, "You are the worst father in the world." And Abe shoots back that Homer isn't exactly father of the year either. The argument is ugly and raw, and it comes from a place of genuine pain on both sides. And then they reconcile, because that's what the show does. It lets its characters hurt each other and then brings them back together, not because the hurt is resolved, but because the love underneath it is stronger than the damage on top. The show has never given Homer and Abe a clean resolution. They don't have a big moment where everything is forgiven and the past is put to rest. And that's actually the most realistic thing about their relationship. Some wounds don't heal completely. Some relationships never reach the place they should be. You just keep showing up, keep visiting the retirement home, keep sitting across from each other in awkward silence, because giving up would mean admitting that the distance between you is permanent. And neither Homer nor Abe is willing to do that. They're both too stubborn and, in their own broken, insufficient ways, too loving. Now, everything we've talked about so far has been the internal Homer. The Homer who exists in the relationships and memories and emotional architecture of his own life. But there was one moment when all of that internal weight became external, when Homer's failures weren't just personal, but global. When the things he broke couldn't be fixed by a handmade card or an awkward apology or a trip to Moe's Tavern. In 2007, Homer Simpson destroyed Springfield, and then he saved it. The Simpsons movie opened in theaters on July 27, 2007. It was directed by David Silverman, the man who had directed the very first episode of the series 18 years earlier. It was written by 11 people, including James L. Brooks, Matt Groening, Al Jean, Mike Scully, George Meyer, David Merkin, Mike Rice, Matt Selman, John Swartzwelder, John Vitti, and Ian Maxtone Graham. Basically, the show assembled every major writer from every era of its history and put them in a room together. The score was composed by Hans Zimmer. The film was rated PG-13, a first for the franchise. The plot is essentially a feature-length version of the show's central question. How much damage can Homer Simpson do, and can he undo it in time? The answer to the first question is a lot. Homer adopts a pig from Krusty Burger. He loves this pig. He names it Spider Pig and sings a parody of the Spider-Man theme song while walking it across the ceiling. It's one of the funniest moments in the movie, and also one of the most telling, because Homer's love for this pig is immediate, unconditional, and completely irresponsible. He fills a silo with the pig's waste, and then, because the town's waste disposal system is already at capacity, he dumps the entire silo into Lake Springfield. The lake, which was already dangerously polluted, becomes a toxic nightmare. The Environmental Protection Agency, led by a villain named Russ Cargill, voiced by Albert Brooks, decides to deal with the problem by encasing the entire town of Springfield under a massive glass dome. Springfield is sealed off from the world. Nobody can get in or out. The town descends into chaos. And when the residents discover that Homer is responsible, they form an angry mob and come for the Simpson family. Homer and his family escape through a sinkhole just before the mob breaks down their door. They flee to Alaska and try to start a new life. But here's where the movie earns its emotional weight. In Alaska, Homer's presented with a choice. He can stay in the beautiful, peaceful, untouched wilderness and leave Springfield behind. He can walk away from the mess he made and never look back. Nobody would blame him. The town wants him dead. His friends have turned on him. He has every reason to just disappear. Marge leaves him. She takes the kids and heads back to Springfield because she has friends there, she has a life there, and she's not willing to abandon the people she cares about. She leaves Homer a video message on their wedding tape. She tells him she's going back. She tells him it's over. And Homer watches the tape alone in the cabin in one of the quietest and most devastating scenes in the film. He rewinds it. He watches it again. He sits in the silence of the empty room and he feels, for the first time, the full weight of what he's done. Not just the lake, not just the dome, the years, the decades of taking Marge for granted, the thousands of small failures that added up to this one enormous one. And then Homer goes back. He rides a motorcycle across the dome. He climbs to the top. He drops a bomb inside that blasts a hole through the glass. He descends on a motorcycle, grabs the bomb that Cargill was going to use to destroy Springfield, and, with Bart's help, throws it through the hole in the dome just before it detonates. Springfield is saved. The dome shatters. The town is free. The movie made approximately $527 million worldwide. It earned 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was the 8th highest grossing film of 2007. And it proved that Homer Simpson could carry a feature film because the emotional core was the same one that had sustained over 400 episodes of television. A man who breaks everything he touches, who makes a mess of every situation he enters, who is by any rational measure the last person you would trust with anything important, goes back. He goes back because the people he loves are there. He goes back because running away is the thing his mother did. And however unconsciously, Homer has spent his entire life trying not to be his mother. She ran from the people she loved because she believed in something bigger. Homer doesn't believe in anything bigger. He believes in Marge and Bart and Lisa and Maggie. And when those people are in danger, even danger that he caused, Homer Simpson will ride a motorcycle up the side of a dome and throw a bomb through a hole in the sky to save them. That's not bravery in the traditional sense. Homer didn't plan it. He didn't strategize. He didn't sit down and calculate the odds. He just went. He moved toward the people he loved because the alternative, sitting in Alaska and being safe and alone, was worse than dying. For Homer, the loneliness is always worse than the danger. The distance is always worse than the fight. Because he has been alone before. He was alone when his mother left. He was alone when his father lied to him. He was alone in every room he sat in during his childhood, even when other people were in it. And he would rather run into a burning building than sit in a cold room by himself. That's the movie. That's the biggest stage Homer Simpson ever played on. And the conclusion it reaches is the same conclusion the show reaches in every episode, every season, every decade. Homer Simpson is a catastrophe. But he is also, when it matters most, the person who comes back. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now, after the movie, the show kept going. And going and going. It's still going. The Simpsons has been renewed through season 40 as part of what Disney described as a mega deal announced on April 2nd, 2025. That means the show will continue well into the late 2020s. Homer Simpson, who first appeared on television in 1987, will have been on the air for over 40 years by the time that deal runs its course. There is no other character in scripted television who has been continuously present for that long. Not in live action, not in animation, not in any medium. And in the later seasons, particularly from season 31 onward, something interesting has happened to Homer. He's changed, not dramatically, not in a way that betrays the character, but in a way that feels like growth. Real, earned, slow growth of the kind that Dr. Wong, the therapist from Pickle Rick, would probably appreciate. The modern era of The Simpsons, which fans and critics have started calling the modern renaissance, began roughly around season 33 when Matt Selman took over as the primary showrunner. Al Jean, who had been running the show since season 13, the longest single tenure in the show's history, stepped back into a consulting role. Selman brought a different energy to the series. He was more experimental. He was more willing to break format. He produced episodes like A Serious Flanders, a 2-part crime drama that played like a limited series pastiche. He pushed for more emotional depth, more visual ambition, and a version of Homer that acknowledged the decades of development the character had accumulated. The strangling gag, perhaps the most iconic physical bit in the show's history, has been effectively retired. Homer no longer grabs Bart by the throat as a default response to misbehavior. The show hasn't made a big announcement about this. Executive producer James L. Brooks explicitly denied in 2024 that anything had changed when fans speculated that the gag had been officially retired after a season 35 episode seemed to reference it. But the gag hasn't appeared in its classic form in years, and its quiet disappearance says something important about where the show is taking Homer. He's trying to be better, not perfect. Homer will never be perfect. He'll never be the father that Lisa deserves, or the husband that Marge deserves, or the employee that the nuclear plant deserves. But the gap between who he is and who he wants to be has narrowed, almost imperceptibly, season by season, year by year. He listens more, he apologizes sooner, he catches himself in the middle of bad behavior and sometimes actually stops. The show has also evolved in ways that speak to Homer's longevity as a character. Every single episode opens with a sequence that centers on Homer. Danny Elfman composed the theme song in 1989, reportedly writing it on the drive home from his initial meeting with Matt Groening. He described it as one of the easiest pieces he ever wrote, and has noted it as the most popular composition of his career. The theme has never been replaced. It has been rearranged a couple of times, most significantly by Alf Clausen at the start of Season 3, and the opening sequence was redesigned in high definition for Season 20 in 2009, but the melody has remained the same for 37 years. That theme is Homer's theme. It's the sound of his world. It's the first thing you hear before you enter Springfield. And it has been playing week after week, decade after decade, longer than some of the people watching the show have been alive. The couch gag, the short, animated sequence at the end of the opening where the family rushes to sit on their living room couch, has become one of the most creatively ambitious recurring elements in all of television. Over the years, the couch gag has been used to parody everything from classic films to fine art to other animated shows. Guest artists and directors have contributed couch gags, turning a 10-second throwaway bit into a canvas for some of the most inventive animation on television. And every single one of those couch gags ends the same way. The family sits down, Homer's on the left side of the couch, Marge is next to him, the kids are lined up, and the television is on. The position never changes. The family is always together. And no matter how surreal or elaborate or destructive the couch gag gets, the reset is always the same. The Simpsons sitting on their couch in their living room, in their house on Evergreen Terrace. Home. The animation itself has evolved enormously over the show's run. The first 3 seasons were produced by Klasky Supo, the studio that also made Rugrats, and the animation was rougher, more fluid, more handmade. Starting with season 4, Film Roman took over and refined the look, establishing the cleaner, sharper visual style that defined the show through its golden age. Seasons 1 through 13 used traditional cell animation, with animators drawing on paper and painting on transparent sheets called cells. The show transitioned to digital ink and paint partway through season 14 and switched to high-definition widescreen production starting with season 20. The overseas animation was subcontracted to studios in South Korea, including ACOM and Rough Draft Studios, for the labor-intensive work of in-between frames, coloring, and filming. Each episode takes approximately 6 months to produce from start to finish. Alf Clausen, who served as the show's primary composer for nearly 27 years starting from season 2, scored close to 600 episodes. He conducted a 35-piece orchestra for the show's underscore and won 2 Emmy Awards and 5 Annie Awards for his work on The Simpsons. He was fired in 2017 as a cost-cutting measure, replaced by Bleeding Fingers Music, a company co-founded by Hans Zimmer. Clausen passed away on May 29, 2025 at the age of 84. His music is the emotional architecture of Homer's world. Every tender moment between Homer and Marge, every tense confrontation with Burns, every quiet scene of Homer sitting alone thinking about his mother was underscored by Clausen's arrangements. To hear the show's music is to hear the interior life of its characters, and Clausen gave that interior life a richness and a warmth that elevated the animation into something approaching art. The show has also become more reflective about Homer's mortality and legacy. Season 35 included an episode called Cremains of the Day that dealt with the death of Larry Dalrymple, a background character who had been a barfly at Moe's Tavern since the very first season. Larry was never important. He barely had any lines, but he was always there. He was part of the scenery of Homer's life. And when he died, the episode used his death to ask Homer what his own life amounts to. What will people say about you when you're gone? What will the bar look like without you in it? It's the kind of episode that the younger version of the show wouldn't have attempted because it requires the audience to have spent decades with these characters in order to feel the weight of a minor one's absence. The show even killed Duffman in season 37 in an episode called Separance that aired on January 4th, 2026. Duffman, the mascot of Homer's favorite beer, the character who embodied everything Homer loved about drinking and partying and refusing to grow up. His retirement felt symbolic. The things Homer once celebrated are being retired. The world is changing around him, and Homer, slowly and reluctantly and with a lot of grumbling, is changing with it. There's also the matter of the Simpsons movie sequel. A second film is expected to be released on September 3rd, 2027. Details about the plot are still scarce, but the existence of a sequel 20 years after the first film tells you that the cultural appetite for Homer Simpson has not diminished. People still want to see this man on the big screen. They still want to watch him fail and try and fail again and somehow pull it off at the last possible second. The formula still works because the emotional truth underneath it hasn't changed. Homer Simpson in 2026 is different from Homer Simpson in 1989. He's softer, he's more self-aware, he's less likely to grab someone by the throat and more likely to sit with an uncomfortable silence. But the core is the same. He's still the man at the nuclear plant. He's still the man with the beer. He's still the man who drives home to Marge and the kids every night because there is nowhere else in the universe he would rather be, even though he will never, not once, be able to articulate that in a way that does justice to how deeply he means it. But before we get to the end of Homer's story, or at least the end of what we can tell so far, because the story is still being written, we need to talk about the adventures. Because Homer Simpson hasn't just sat on his couch for 37 seasons. He's lived more than any other character in animation. He has done things that no human being could possibly do and survived things that would kill any human being 10 times over. And those adventures, as ridiculous and cartoonish as they are on the surface, are part of what makes Homer one of the most fully realized characters in fiction. Because through every adventure, no matter how insane the premise, the emotional core stays constant. Homer is a man out of his depth, trying his best, failing spectacularly, and somehow finding his way back to the people he loves. Homer has been to space. In the Season 5 episode Deep Space Homer, NASA recruits him as part of a plan to make space travel more appealing to the average American viewer. Homer goes through astronaut training, boards the space shuttle, and accidentally breaks an ant farm in zero gravity, causing chaos that nearly destroys the mission. He saves himself by grabbing a carbon rod during re-entry. The workers at the plant hail him as a hero, then immediately go back to ignoring him. He went to space, and it didn't change a single thing about his life on the ground. Homer has been a monorail conductor. In Season 4's Marge vs. the Monorail, written by Conan O'Brien before O'Brien left to host late-night television, a fast-talking con man named Lyle Lanley convinces Springfield to build a monorail with money the town received from a fine against Mr. Burns. Homer gets the job as conductor. The monorail is a death trap. It nearly destroys the town. And the episode is consistently rated as one of the best in the show's entire run, sitting at approximately 9.2 on IMDb. Homer has worked more jobs than any animated character in history. The show has put him in well over 100 different occupations across its run. He's been a snowplow driver in Mr. Plow, a country music manager in Colonel Homer, a food critic in Guess Who's Coming to Criticize Dinner, a boxer in The Homer They Fall, a missionary in Missionary Impossible, a voice actor, a bootlegger, a farmer, a truck driver, a bodyguard, a union leader, a vigilante called the Pie Man, a superhero, a cult leader, a professional mascot, a bootleg jeans salesman, a repo man, a carnival worker. Each job lasts exactly one episode because that's how The Simpsons works. The status quo resets. Homer goes back to the plant. But the sheer volume of lives this man has lived, the sheer number of identities he has tried on and discarded, tells you something about his restlessness. He's never satisfied. He's always looking for something. He doesn't know what it is. He just knows that sitting at his console in Sector 7G isn't it. And every new job, every new adventure, every new scheme is another attempt to find whatever it is he's missing. What he's missing, of course, is a sense of purpose that matches the size of his heart. Homer has the emotional capacity of a much better man trapped inside the intellectual and circumstantial limitations of the man he actually is. He wants to matter. He wants to do something important. He wants to feel like his life adds up to more than a series of accidents and near misses, punctuated by trips to the donut shop. But the world keeps telling him that he's not smart enough, not disciplined enough, not good enough to be anything more than what he already is. And so he goes home, he sits on his couch, he opens a beer, and he watches television until the next adventure comes along. Homer's friendships in Springfield are another window into who he really is. His inner circle at Moe's Tavern, Lenny Leonard, Carl Carlson, Barney Gumble, and Moe Slack, the bartender, represents the social world that Homer inhabits when he's not with his family. These are men who, in their own ways, are all dealing with versions of the same thing Homer is dealing with. Loneliness, dissatisfaction, the gap between who they wanted to be and who they ended up as. Lenny and Carl are lifelong best friends who work at the plant alongside Homer and seem to drift through their days with a cheerful pointlessness that mirrors Homer's own relationship with his job. Barney, as we discussed, was destroyed by the beer Homer gave him in high school and has spent the entire series as a cautionary tale that Homer refuses to learn from. And Moe is perhaps the loneliest character in Springfield, a man who runs a bar that nobody wants to be in, who has no real relationships outside of his customers, and who has attempted suicide on multiple occasions throughout the series. These are Homer's friends. These are the people he chooses to spend his free time with. And they're all broken, they're all stuck, they're all running out the clock on lives that didn't turn out the way they expected. And the fact that Homer is drawn to them, that he feels comfortable among them, tells you everything about his self-image. Homer doesn't hang out with successful people because he doesn't see himself as a successful person. He gravitates toward the margins because that's where he feels he belongs. The barstool at Moe's is just another version of the console at the power plant. It's a place where nobody expects anything from him, and the absence of expectations is the closest thing to peace that Homer knows. But then there's Ned Flanders, and the relationship between Homer and Ned is one of the most complex dynamics in the show, because it reveals a part of Homer that he works very hard to hide. Ned Flanders is everything Homer isn't. He's kind, he's generous, he's patient, he's devout, he's fit, he's a good father, he's a good neighbor, he mows his lawn, he volunteers at church, he raises his children with warmth and consistency and unconditional love. Ned Flanders is the man that Homer, in his most honest moments, knows he should be. And Homer hates him for it. Not really. Homer doesn't actually hate Ned. The show has made it clear across dozens of episodes that Homer's hostility toward Ned is not genuine malice. It's jealousy. It's resentment. It's the rage of a man who knows he's falling short and can't stop himself from looking next door at the guy who isn't. Every time Homer sees Ned's perfectly decorated house, or his well-behaved children, or his calm, centered demeanor, he sees a mirror image of his own failures. And instead of processing that comparison honestly, because Homer doesn't process anything honestly, he lashes out. He borrows Ned's things and never returns them. He damages Ned's property. He insults him. He takes advantage of Ned's kindness at every opportunity. And Ned keeps forgiving him every single time. Because that's who Ned is, and that persistent, unearnable forgiveness is another source of Homer's frustration because he doesn't feel like he deserves it. Homer knows somewhere in the back of his crayon-damaged brain that he treats Ned badly, and Ned's refusal to hold it against him makes Homer feel worse, not better, because it removes the possibility of being punished, and punishment is the only emotional currency Homer has ever really understood. His father punished him with silence. His mother punished him by leaving. The world punishes him every day by being too complicated for him to navigate. Homer understands punishment. What he doesn't understand is grace. And Ned offers him grace over and over, and Homer has no idea what to do with it. The show eventually softened this dynamic, particularly after the death of Ned's wife Maude in season 11. Maude Flanders was killed off in the episode Alone Again, Natura Diddly, knocked off a grandstand by t-shirt cannons at a NASCAR race. The death was written into the show partly because Maude's voice actress, Maggie Roswell, had left over a pay dispute regarding travel expenses. But the narrative consequence was profound. Ned became a widower. He was suddenly a single father raising 2 boys. And Homer, who had spent years tormenting this man, watched Ned grieve and for once didn't make it about himself. The dynamic shifted. Homer's treatment of Ned became less hostile and more, Homer, clumsy, insensitive, occasionally inappropriate, but not cruel. Homer stopped being Ned's antagonist and started being something closer to his strange, inadequate, but weirdly loyal friend. There are also the adventures that Homer didn't choose. The ones that were thrust upon him by the writers as part of the show's annual tradition of pushing the boundaries of what an animated sitcom could be. The Treehouse of Horror episodes, which have aired every year since season 2, don't technically count as canon. They exist outside the show's continuity. But they're worth mentioning because they give the writers permission to do things with Homer that the regular episodes can't. In these Halloween specials, Homer has been killed in every conceivable way. He's been eaten, he's been blown up, he's been turned inside out. He's been transported to other dimensions. He's been a vampire, a zombie, King Kong, a ghost, and a murderous version of himself. The Treehouse episodes use Homer as a canvas for the writer's most ambitious and most twisted ideas. And the fact that Homer can absorb all of that, can be reshaped into any genre or any scenario and still feel like Homer, speaks to the depth of the character. He's not a one-note creation. He's not a simple cartoon dad who only works in one context. Homer Simpson works in horror. He works in science fiction. He works in tragedy. He works in farce. He works in anything you put him in because his emotional core, the love, the confusion, the stubborn refusal to give up, is universal enough to survive any genre. The show holds the Guinness World Record for the most guest stars featured in a television series, with over 810 unique guests as of April 2020. Homer has shared scenes with real-life presidents, rock stars, astronauts, athletes, scientists, and actors. He met Stephen Hawking. He was taught to box by a character modeled after Muhammad Ali's opponents. He sang with the cast of a Broadway musical. He traveled to Australia, Japan, England, France, Brazil, China, Iceland, and dozens of other countries. He's been on Jeopardy! He's been in a band that won a Grammy. He once formed a group called the B Sharps, with Principal Skinner, Apu Nahasapima Pedalon, and Barney Gumble, and they performed on the roof of Moe's Tavern in a shot-for-shot recreation of the Beatles' famous rooftop concert. Homer has lived more lives than any other character in fiction, and every single one of those lives ends the same way. He goes home, he sits on his couch, he puts his arm around Marge, and the credits roll. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now let's talk about what Homer Simpson actually means. Not within the show, not within the fictional world of Springfield, but in the real world, in our world. Because the impact of this character extends far beyond the television screen, and the reasons for that impact tell you something important about who we are as a culture and what we value and what we're really looking for when we turn on the television at night. Homer Simpson debuted in 1987 on The Tracy Ullman Show. The standalone series premiered on December 17, 1989. As of early 2026, the show has produced 37 seasons and over 800 episodes. It has been renewed through season 40. It is, by every measure, the longest-running American primetime scripted television series in history. It holds the record for the most seasons. It holds the record for the most episodes. It passed Gunsmoke in both categories and shows no sign of stopping. The numbers alone are staggering. The show has won 37 Primetime Emmy Awards out of approximately 100 nominations. It has won the Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program 12 times, more than any other show in that category. The voice cast has collectively won 16 Emmys for Outstanding Voiceover Performance. The show has won 34 Annie Awards. It has won 13 Writers Guild of America Awards. It won 2 Peabody Awards in 1996 and 2020. The 1996 Peabody made it the first animated series in history to receive that honor. Time magazine named The Simpsons the greatest television series of the 20th century. The Simpson family received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on January 14, 2000, located at 7021 Hollywood Boulevard. Homer's catchphrase, "Dough," was added to the New Oxford Dictionary of English in 1998 and to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2001. Words invented by the show, like cromulent and ambigun, which were originally jokes about fake words that sound plausible, have since been added to real dictionaries. In 2007, USA Today named Homer Simpson one of the 25 most influential people of the past 25 years. That list included real people, presidents, scientists, business leaders, and Homer Simpson, a cartoon character, ranked alongside actual human beings who shaped the course of history. Entertainment Weekly ranked Homer first on their list of the top 100 characters of the past 20 years in 2010. First, above every live-action character, every dramatic protagonist, every superhero, every villain, every character from every medium. A fat, yellow, four-fingered man who works at a nuclear power plant and drinks too much beer was judged to be the most significant fictional character of 2 decades of storytelling. And the show's cultural footprint goes even deeper than the awards and the lists. The Simpsons has been credited with, or at least coincidentally associated with, predicting dozens of real-world events. In the season 11 episode Bart to the Future, which aired on March 19, 2000, the show mentioned Donald Trump having been president of the United States 16 years before Trump's 2016 election. In a 1998 episode, the show depicted 20th Century Fox as a division of Walt Disney Company, which became reality when Disney acquired 21st Century Fox in 2019. The show has been so prolific and so willing to satirize every conceivable aspect of American life that its jokes have, with almost eerie frequency, turned into prophecies. There's an entire internet subculture devoted to cataloging these predictions, although the reality is simpler than it seems. When you produce over 800 episodes that mock everything about modern society, you're going to accidentally get some things right. The Simpsons generated $1 billion merchandising industry. In the early 1990s, a phenomenon called Bartmania swept the country, with Bart Simpson t-shirts appearing everywhere from schools to shopping malls. Bootleg Black Bart t-shirts, unauthorized shirts featuring Bart reimagined as a black character, became a cultural phenomenon in 1990, reflecting both the show's massive reach and the way audiences were already remixing the characters to reflect their own identities and communities. The show has a theme park presence at both Universal Studios Florida and Universal Studios Hollywood, where Springfield, USA-themed areas feature Krusty Burger, Moe's Tavern, Lard Lad Donuts, and a motion simulator ride called the Simpsons Ride that replaced the classic Back to the Future attraction. You can walk through a physical version of Springfield, you can eat at the places Homer eats, you can hold a Duff beer in your hand. The fictional world that Matt Groening sketched on a piece of paper in a Hollywood lobby has been built in concrete and steel and exists as a real place that real people can visit. The show has published comic books through Bongo Comics from 1993 to 2018, running 245 issues. It has released multiple soundtrack albums, including The Simpsons Sing the Blues, which sold over 2 million copies and featured Do the Bartman, a single that topped charts in multiple countries and had uncredited contributions from Michael Jackson. It has produced video games, most notably the 2003 game The Simpsons Hit and Run, a GTA-style open-world game that has become a cult classic and the most requested remaster among fans of the franchise. In 2025, the show collaborated with Fortnite for a Simpsons-themed season featuring a playable Springfield Island map. The franchise is everywhere. It is inescapable. And at the center of all of it, at the center of the merchandise and the theme parks and the video games and the cultural references and the academic papers and the doctoral theses and the linguistic studies and the late-night arguments about which season was the best, at the center of all of it is a drawing of a man with a round head and a blue collar and a dumb look on his face who just wants to go home and eat some pork chops. Homer Simpson surpassed his origins a long time ago. He's not just a cartoon character. He's not just a sitcom dad. He's an American myth. He's the working class everyman in a country that claims to celebrate the working class but mostly ignores it. He's the guy who falls asleep in the pew at church but still goes every Sunday because Marge asks him to. He's the member of a fraternal organization called the Stonecutters who got in because he had the right birthmark. He's the man who tried to jump Springfield Gorge on a skateboard and fell twice in one of the most replayed clips in animation history. He's the man who pulled a gun on the drive-thru speaker at Krusty Burger because they were out of shakes. He's the man who once said to Marge with complete sincerity, "I'm going to the back seat of my car with the woman I love, and I won't be back for 10 minutes. He's crude, he's honest, he's stupid, he's brave, he's selfish, he's generous. He's the worst employee at the nuclear plant and the best thing that ever happened to his family." He is all of these things simultaneously, and the show has never once asked him to resolve the contradiction. Because the contradiction is the point. Homer Simpson is not a character you fix. He's a character you accept, the way you accept anyone you love, not because they're perfect, but because their imperfections are the shape of them, and that shape is the thing you've grown to need. Now, I've been talking for a while, and we're coming to the end of Homer's story, or at least the end of what I can tell you tonight, because the truth is, Homer's story doesn't have an ending. Not yet. The show is still running. There are new episodes airing right now in season 37. There are more seasons coming. There's a sequel film on the way. Homer will keep going to work and coming home and sitting on his couch and cracking open a duff and yelling at the television and forgetting birthdays and remembering them at the last second and saying the wrong thing and occasionally, beautifully, perfectly saying exactly the right thing. But if I had to choose one moment that captures the entirety of who Homer Simpson is, one scene that contains the whole character in a single image, it wouldn't be the space mission, it wouldn't be the monorail, it wouldn't be the movie. It wouldn't be any of the big, loud, spectacular moments that make for good clips on YouTube. It would be that plaque, "Do It For Her." Because that's the whole story. That's the complete, unabridged, from beginning to end story of Homer J. Simpson. He is a man with a crayon in his brain, a man with a mother who left him and a father who lied to him. A man with a boss who can't remember his name and a bar stool that knows his shape. A man who was born into a world that was never going to reward him and who spent his entire life accepting that fact without ever once accepting the alternative, which was to stop caring. Homer cares. That's the secret. That's the thing that separates him from every other cartoon dad, every other sitcom bumbler, every other big, dumb guy in a white shirt. Homer Simpson cares so much that it hurts. He cares about Marge and he can't tell her properly. He cares about Lisa and he can't reach her intellectually. He cares about Bart, and he can't control his temper long enough to show it gently. He cares about Maggie, and the only way he knows how to express it is to rearrange the letters on a plaque that was designed to break his spirit. "Do It For Her" is not just a phrase on a wall, it's a philosophy. It's a way of life. It's the fundamental operating principle of a man who has been given every reason to give up and who simply refuses. Not because he's strong. Homer isn't strong. Not because he's smart, we've established that he very much is not. Not because he has some deep philosophical framework that gives his suffering meaning. Homer doesn't read philosophy. Homer doesn't read anything. Homer Simpson does it for her because that's all he's got. That's the only thing he knows how to do. Love his family, go to work, come home, repeat, every single day, until the day the show ends, which at this rate might be never. And there is something in that, something in the sheer stubborn repetition of it, something in the refusal to quit or to stop or to accept that the game is rigged and the deck is stacked and the plaque is right, and he really is here forever. There is something in that refusal that is genuinely, quietly, devastatingly heroic. Every animated dad who came after Homer owes him something. Peter Griffin from Family Guy, Stan Smith from American Dad, Hank Hill from King of the Hill, Bob Belcher from Bob's Burgers, Randy Marsh from South Park. All of them exist in the space that Homer created. Before The Simpsons, animated fathers were either perfect or absent. They were the clean-cut breadwinners of Hanna-Barbera, or they were the bumbling Fred Flintstones who were still fundamentally competent and lovable in a simple, uncomplicated way. Homer changed that. He showed that an animated character could be deeply flawed, genuinely broken, authentically struggling, and still be the emotional center of a family that millions of people cared about. Peter Griffin is the closest thing to a direct descendant. Family Guy launched on Fox in 1999, and the comparisons to The Simpsons were immediate and relentless. Seth MacFarlane has acknowledged the influence. But the difference between Homer and Peter is the difference between complexity and caricature. Peter Griffin is cruel for the sake of cruelty. His stupidity is weaponized. His relationship with his family is often played for shock rather than emotion. Homer, for all his flaws, loves his family in a way that is never in question. His cruelty is always accidental. His stupidity is always paired with intention. He is always trying. Peter often isn't. And that distinction, the distinction between a man who fails because he's trying and a man who fails because he doesn't care, is the line that separates Homer Simpson from every animated father who came after him. Bob Belcher from Bob's Burgers is perhaps the character who comes closest to inheriting Homer's emotional DNA. Bob is a working-class dad who runs a failing restaurant. He's not brilliant, he's not successful, he's not even particularly competent, but he loves his wife and his kids with an intensity that drives every episode, and his struggles are real and relatable in the way that Homer's are. Bob Belcher is what Homer might have been if Homer had been created 30 years later, by a generation of writers who grew up watching The Simpsons and internalized its lessons about how to make flawed characters lovable. But none of them are Homer. None of them have the depth. None of them have the backstory. None of them have the 37 seasons of accumulated joy and grief and failure and love that Homer has been carrying since 1989. Homer Simpson is not a character that can be replicated because the thing that makes him special is not a formula, it's time. It's the decades of stories that have layered on top of each other until this simple, cartoon man became one of the most fully realized characters in the history of fiction. Homer Simpson is not the smartest man in the room. He is not the funniest, although he is very funny. He is not the most tragic, although his story is sadder than people give it credit for. Homer Simpson is just a guy with a beer gut and a receding hairline and a job he hates and a family he loves more than he can say and a crayon in his brain that nobody ever bothered to find. And he does it for her, every day, without being asked, without being thanked, without understanding why. And that, right there, is why we're still watching. That's why 37 seasons and 800 episodes later, people still tune in. Not for the jokes, although the jokes are good. Not for the satire, although the satire is sharp. Not for the celebrity guests, or the Treehouse of Horror specials, or the couch gags, or any of the things that make the show entertaining. We watch because Homer Simpson makes us feel like it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to not have the answers. It's okay to sit on a couch and not know what you're doing with your life. As long as, when the moment comes, when the people you love need you to show up, you show up. That's Homer. That's the whole man. And somewhere in Springfield right now, he's sitting at his workstation in Sector 7G, staring at a wall of photographs of a baby girl. Doing his job, running out the clock, waiting to go home to the woman who chose him on a dark road after a bad prom night. Do it for her. The show has been on the air since December 17th, 1989. It has produced over 800 episodes across 37 seasons. It is the longest-running American primetime scripted television series in history. It is the longest-running American animated program in history. It has won 37 Emmys. It has won 2 Peabodys. It has generated billions of dollars in merchandise. It has changed the English language. It has predicted the future. It has spawned theme parks and video games and academic courses and fan conventions and more analysis than any other show in the history of the medium. And all of it, every bit of it, started with a man in a lobby who drew a picture of a dad. Thanks for listening tonight. If you made it this far, you're part of a special group of people who care about stories as much as we do. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It's completely free and it helps us keep making these for you. Leave a comment and tell me your favorite Homer moment. I'd love to hear it. Sleep well. And remember, nobody belongs anywhere. Nobody exists on purpose. Everybody's going to die. But in the meantime, you might as well do it for her. And if you wake up tomorrow and the world feels too heavy and the job feels too long and the people around you don't seem to notice that you're drowning, remember Homer. Remember the guy who carries a plaque on his wall that was designed to break him and turned it into the thing that keeps him whole. Remember the guy who chose a crayon over consciousness because being understood was less important than being present. Remember the guy who went back to save a town that wanted him dead because the alternative was being alone, and being alone was always the thing he feared more than anything. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to show up. That's the lesson. That's the whole lesson. 37 seasons and 800 episodes and 4 decades of television. And it all comes down to that. Show up. Do it for her. Do it for them. Do it for whoever is waiting for you on the other side of another long day. Homer would. And Homer's just a drawing on a piece of paper that a man sketched in a lobby because he was too scared to give away his rabbits. If a drawing can do it, so can you. Good night.